Another news drop on a Friday, and today it is Tzeentch. We're going to enter the world of Tzeentch with a fun, awesome, badass trailer. Probably one of the better trailers I've seen for Warhammer 3 because it's got so many cool, bright, awesome colors. And then we are going to get into the mechanics for Tzeentch. We've got the campaign mechanics blog that we're going to sift through and look at. And in my typical fashion of upfronting as much knowledge as I can to give you a pretty good idea of how Tzeentch plays on the map. And I'm not sure if certain mechanics are unique entirely to Tzeentch or just unique to demons, but Tzeentch will have the ability to teleport across the map and ambush armies. It will be generating what's called grimoires. It's their specific currency that I'll then use for text. Its special little changer of ways tree, which is very reminiscent to Clan Eshin and their ability to do a lot of subterfuge and undermining of other factions. So Tzeentch has got a lot of fun stuff planned for it. And on top of it, they've got like Protoss level Zealot shields. There's something in the description, or I'm sorry, in the blog that's called Barrier, which acts as a shield for the units. And I'm assuming it's something of that sort where they get like an additional shield. And that is very reminiscent to the lore. In the lore, it talks about how if you give anyone the mark of Tzeentch, it gives them an additional shield that will basically repel attacks and so on and so forth. And in tabletop, that was represented as a ward save. And that's how I envisioned it happening in Total War Warhammer. But it seems that they have now a barrier which allows them to get whatever benefit from it. I'm not really sure. We're going to have to probably find out on another Tzeentch reveal. But I am stoked to jump into this for you guys. So let's start off with the trailer, and then we're going to jump into the blog going through the individual campaign mechanics. And as always, guys, don't forget to comment, like, and or subscribe. I can't tell you how much it helps. And if you have not yet pre-ordered Total War Warhammer 3, you can do so using the link to the Nexus Store in my description. They get the keys directly from the developer, and it is a great way to support the channel. Let's jump in here on entering the world of Tzeentch and the campaign mechanics. So we'll just go ahead and press play here. I've kind of turned down the volume, and I'll give you guys a link to the actual thing when it goes live. They've given me this ahead of time so we can take a look here. But we see some Chaos Furies. We see Kairos Fate Weaver. We see some discs. Things are going wild. Look at those dudes. We're going to jump back to everything as we can. So those guys are probably the ones that we saw in the Terracotta Sentinels video. But we see some of the horrors. The blue ones right here. The pink ones all over the place. Some Forsaken. These are the Flux Masters, the Heralds of Tzeentch. Kairos looking all sexy like. Then we get the not the pink horrors, the Screamers. Now I don't know if that's Sartoriel or just a generic legendary lord for Tzeentch. And I love the Furies there. Got the guys on the disc yet again. And taking a look at them, they don't look too crazy or unique. Damn it, look at those flamers, man. Oof. Let's just jump back here a little bit. I've been told that I sound like Kairos. Let me turn this up. Inevitable. Someone's like, this sounds like you. Like when I do my evil voice or whatever, I was like, I think I'm flattered. I appreciate it. So this looks like to be the unit that we saw in the Sentinels video, right? In the Terracotta Sentinels video, we saw the Terracotta Sentinels like ground pounding someone. And it looked like these dudes because from the back, they had a staff and a sword, which we can see right here. But this looks more like a hero. Like, I mean, that just kind of looks like a generic hero. I mean, I don't know anything that's got a unit of 3. Well, it looks like a 4th one right there. Maybe it's just a very specific angle. Yeah. Maybe it is just a specific angle, but you see 4 of them right there. And they look pretty mean. I like that. I like the look of those guys right there. Again, we don't really know what the hell they are. And I love also seeing this constant, like really cool opening of like this Tzeentch portal into the realm of sorcerers right there, into Tzeentch's realm. We get these guys here, of course, the dudes on the discs. And they look, like we saw in the Cathay video, they look like a whole entire unit, right? Not just simply, hey, this is just a a specific shock cav unit, or this is a mount, and it probably is going to be a mount for a sorcerer or something of the sort, right? But nothing too terribly unique about these guys. They look just like, and that's been the big concern, right? Anytime anyone is, ooh, I didn't see these dudes in the background. Look at little homies up there. Oh man. I always personally played Korn, not the band, and I always really loved the aesthetic of Tzeentch when it came to a lot of the machinations and manipulation and everything like that, because Korn seems so one note to me. But I love seeing this kind of all in its glory. Oh man, it is so sweet to see all this just kind of jumping around. I just karate chop that guy. The Forsaken here, again, we have the Flux Masters, the Heralds of Tzeentch, probably either a Lord or a Hero unit here, probably pulling from the lore of Tzeentch. And dude, look at Kairos. Kairos is looking girthy. I love that. Again, some Screamers. And look at these spawns. Like, look at that. That's exactly actually what I was looking for. Look at those spawns. And I don't expect the spawns to look anything other than this, right? I want them to have, clearly some evidence of being a specific god-aligned spawn, like we saw with Khorne, right? The Khorne ones have that Khorne dog demon goat head thing that is very reminiscent of the very first Bloodthirster model that came out ages and ages ago, and they're colored red and crimson. This year we get a lot of blues, purples, and pinks, and we get the kind of like slimy tentacle arm thing of Tzeentch that is reminiscent in a lot of other like design motifs, right, on like staves and whatnot, staves. But I do love a lot of this. The Furies too, looking pretty cool, looking again pretty girthy. You guys want some Tren? So here's a really good shot of these yet again, right? These nondescript Chaos Warriors on discs. And yes, they don't look terribly Tzeentchy. And I know that like the big argument that I've made, that I know Indie Pride's made, is we want them to look as Tzeentchy as the Khorne ones do, right? The Khorne ones have the Berserker's Crest, which, to be fair, Khorne has the Berserker's Crest, whereas no one else really has the Berserker's Crest or anything reminiscent to it. But you could then make the argument that, okay, Nurgle's warriors more often than not have a single horn and a very just rusted pustulant helmet. Slaanesh stuff is very overly ornate and beautiful because, you know, that's the vanity of Slaanesh. And Tzeentch's stuff is usually kind of eldritch in its look, right? It's very, not necessarily ornate like Slaanesh is, but it's ornate in that kind of old dusty tome kind of way. So I do expect Tzeentch to look a little bit different. And the argument that a lot of people have been making is like, well, hey, look, this is what Chaos Warriors of Tzeentch used to look like on tabletop. That's very true. They were just simply colored models. Not a lot of people kit bashed a lot of the time. They would just paint. But this isn't tabletop. This is Total War Warhammer, where you have sky is the limit when it comes to modeling and painting things. So I expect just like a little bit more customization on them. We do get some different kind of motifs on their armor. And when we saw the ones back here, the back of their cloaks had the cool flames of Tzeentch too. And I mean, honestly too, guys, as soon as we get into the game itself, we can really get our hands on them, we'll be able to tell. They do seem to have a little bit of that blue, purpley glow on their eye slits. So, dude, he just shield bashed that guy off of his Limsa Limosa. Sorry, I've been playing too much Final Fantasy. Off of his Longma. That is rude. And again, the flamers here too. So a lot of really sick action coming from this this is sick too. I hope that that's an actual ability, like an actual Lore of Tzeentch ability where he can just blast 50 damn magic missiles at you. So really excited about Tzeentch. Hopefully we get a roster reveal soon, but I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think that the roster is anything outside of what we're seeing in this video, because we've now gone through 3 different roster reveals, and that seems to be the MO. And on top of it, if the roster reveal matches the Khorne roster reveal, it's going to be the Chaos Demons 8th edition army book plus maybe 1 or 2 things. Like, I didn't see a Tzeentch specific Soul Grinder, but we saw the concept art for them. So I expect to see that as maybe one of the only other things that we haven't seen in this list. Maybe getting a better explanation as to who the hell these guys are. And we'll also see these guys on the list too. There's not much of a big representation on them, but also the mount options, right? Can everything ride the chariots? Can everything ride the discs, horses? What's going to be that variation? So I expect roster wise, this is not going to be much different than what we're seeing here. Let's go into the mechanics because they are juicy. Here we are with the blog post of the mechanics for Tzeentch, and they are pretty fun. Again, they borrow from a lot of stuff that's already kind of exists in the game when it comes to their manipulating capabilities. So let's take a look at that here. And this initial portion pretty much talks about how this is the very first monogod breakdown we're going to have of any of these faction mechanics. But we will be getting Kislev and Khorne very soon. It mentions at the very bottom saying, hey, that is coming. Oh man, I thought this said Tzeentch is the god of change, manipulation, and magic, the great constipator. It says conspirator and the changer of ways. Man, I have a child's brain. But Kairos Fateweaver is obviously the legendary lord that will be leading the faction Oracles of Tzeentch. It says right here, Kairos Fateweaver, legendarily powerful lord of change and spellcaster supreme, leads the Oracles of Tzeentch in an invasion of Cathay and the rest of the world to follow shortly. So it just kind of plants the, or makes the page, or what? It paints the scene for us, plants the page. If that's not a saying, it needs to be now. Start planting the page, guys. But the first portion here is kind of telling us about grimoires and how you get them, right? They're generated from battles, from buildings, from sacking settlements, dilemmas, a lot of different situations. You even have some cool stances that allow you to generate grimoires and whatnot, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. But you'll be basically trying to accrue these grimoires to use in this changing of the ways mechanic. So I'm going to go ahead and put up another picture here to help you see this. And you've got these 10 options to choose from, right? Reveal faction intentions, track army, blah, 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 blah. And then you can choose the location. It takes about 5 turns or whatever it is, and it shows you the corresponding cost. So for example, reveal shroud is going to take a duration of 5 turns, reveals the shroud overall of a faction's territory. I'm sorry, it's going to reveal that shroud for 5 turns. It's going to cost 50 grimoires to use. So let's go through some of these options because it details them in the blog. So going from the top to the bottom in the blog, which will be on different portions of this picture, we've got transfer settlement, which is exciting here because it transfers control and ownership of one settlement to a new faction. This can be your faction or another. And I think that this is kind of a tip here that the ability to transfer factions is coming in. To transfer ownership of things is coming in with Total War Warhammer 3 like we had in Troy. And I think that that is lovely. And people have wanted it for ages. We even have it here as a mechanic for Tzeentch. Forcing that ability to or transfer a settlement is really, really cool, I think. We get open gates. Open the gates of a major settlement with walls for any battles in that settlement in the next few turns. So makes sense, pretty easy. Force a rebellion, pretty obvious there. It spawns an army for the owner to contend with, not one you control. So it automatically creates a rebellion force. Track army, you are given the line of sight of a target army. Reveal faction intentions, shows the plans of all armies that target faction controls. Reveal shroud, gives complete vision of a target faction's territory. Halt faction. All characters, so armies and heroes, have their movement halted and disabled for the faction's following turn. That is awesome, especially if you're trying to chase around the AI and you just can't lock them down. That is such a cool ability. Give war coordination target, gives a faction a war coordination target even if they are not your ally, which is pretty cool. Break alliance, break the military or defensive alliances between 2 factions, and then force a war between 2 factions. So I do really, really, really like this mechanic. Again, it borrows very heavily from what we get with Clan Eshin and their ability to do a lot of these things already, right? Like completely destroying a faction and stuff like that, but a little bit more balanced at the same time. And I'm really excited to kind of see these things come into the fore. Now, in addition to this, we get a Winds of Magic manipulation. That's a big thing for Tzeentch, as you would imagine. And with this, they don't go into a ton of detail here, but basically they're saying that the level of Winds of Magic in the settlements or the locations that you've got settlements will dictate certain things. It'll increase your abilities, your capabilities, everything. And it'll also help out your armies. Now, they said that there are a ton of changes coming to the Winds of Magic, and they haven't shown us or talked about it just yet, but they will. So it's cool to see that Tzeentch's faction mechanics play very heavily into this manipulation. So as well as providing the aforementioned buffs to his buildings, this allows for armies with multiple spellcasters. That's going to be quite a lot of your Tzeentch armies, believe it or not, to benefit heavily in terms of the power reserves available to them. It's also worth noting that there has been some large changes made to the nature of the Winds of Magic and power reserves in battle, which will be detailed soon. The upshot is that this ability should never be discounted to ensure victory, which I really enjoy, especially because this will continue to play into other mechanics, because we have the Corruption, Unholy Manifestation, and the Great Game. So I've kind of made a couple references about this where we've got these Chaos Gods, but we don't know how this Great Game plays into it. And the Great Game is pretty much the war between the 4 ruinous powers that is constantly going on. Anytime one of them gets ahead, they all pretty much scheme to get that one back in line, and they knock the other one down at the same time. It's always a cat and mouse game with these guys. But the way that this works is you have an ability called Unholy Manifestation, and they're these abilities that you can use for free abilities available to every demon faction, which are unlocked as the faction's corruption spreads through the world. And that's another thing worth noting. Every demon will have its own style of corruption, and then there will be a general chaos corruption. And as you gain this corruption, it seems, you will push ahead the others. You'll become ascendant, and this allows you to power up your faction. And these abilities here are, well, right here. So the ones for Tzeentch are Scriveners of Insanity, so it's unlocked from the start, and it allows a friendly army to generate a big batch of grimoires over the course of several turns. The army cannot move during this time and must be in enemy territory. So it seems like it's kind of like a special rating stance for Tzeentch that obviously locks the unit down, or the army down, and they generate grimoires. And it says several turns, so let's just say 3 to 5. I think that's, everyone's got a different gauge of what a several is. So I'm going to say it's probably 3 to 5 turns. And I'm wondering too, if they're locked down, if they suffer any penalties, similar to how rating, you have certain penalties that are applied to your force. The caveat here is that, the advantage here is that you're going to get money every turn. So I'm wondering if this will affect the enemy that you do this in, if they're going to want to supplant that army as fast as possible. So I'm really curious to see how that's going to play itself out, and if it shrouds your force or what the deal is here, because it seems pretty dangerous to do. And I'm afraid that you might be able to cheese it too, right? Like, okay, I'm just going to make one lord. I'm going to walk that army, that one lord, into the other region, and I'm going to do Scriveners of Insanity. And if he dies, he dies. It's just one character. I haven't lost a huge investment, like an entire full stack or half stack, whatever it is. So we'll have to see how that actually plays itself out, because I'm worried a little bit about it being too cheesable. Is that a word? Too Cheez-Its. Cheez-Its. The next one here is Mutagenic Energies, which is pretty cool. It requires 1,500 global Tzeentchian corruption, and it causes a target army to suffer attrition for a turn, regardless of situation or immunities, which is pretty nifty. Magic Flare is a 3,000 global Tzeentch corruption cost, and here is the sweet one. Increases the range and barrier hit points of all units in an army. Here it is. This is it. This is the Protoss shield I was talking about. If you watch the very end of the Siege rework video, anytime those Forsaken get into combat with the Cathayan military, they have this like blue explosion around them. So I think this is their barrier blowing up, or showing their barrier running out of hit points, because it says barrier hit points. And then it says barrier is a special shield all Tzeentch units have. We'll detail this further in the upcoming roster reveal. I can't fucking wait. I don't know what this means, but it sounds to me like they get Protoss shields, and if they regenerate out of combat, that's even cooler. It's so flavorful, and it's like I said, directly from the lore, in that's how the Mark of Tzeentch would work. It would give you a barrier. That barrier would confer a ward save on the tabletop, and they've actually taken it as a physical barrier, or a actual damage shield in Total War Warhammer. So that's really exciting to hear about. Next, we have Night of Madness, requires 6,000 global Tzeentch corruption, and target friendly army generates Tzeentch corruption and control loss in a province, as well as increasing the army's Winds of Magic power reserve. It cannot move during these times. Again, I do wonder what kind of penalties will be affixed to anything that's in this Scriveners or Knights of Madness that kind of locks them in place. So very, very curious to see. And it does seem like Tzeentch is going to be primarily a ranged force. I'm sure the horrors are going to be very terrible in close combat. I don't think they're going to be like Bloodletters, right? Bloodletters are probably, of the 4 demons, the ones that probably are going to do the most damage pound for pound, versus I would say a Demonette is probably going to be faster on the draw. It probably will have a higher melee defense and a physical resistance, but probably a lower melee attack and lower weapon strength. Who knows? And maybe even even looking at the Nurgle, I would look at Nurgle having probably one of the weaker attacks, but having the highest resilience, either through hit points, armor, melee defense, physical resistance, whatever it is. You know, that's kind of Nurgle's shtick. So range kind of seems to be the big focus here for Tzeentch, especially that you can increase the range of when you have Magic Flare active and barrier hit points. And that's probably the way that it buffers having such a huge focus on range, which we'll find out when we see the roster reveal. Now moving in here into cults, we get more of an expansion on the cults mechanic. So as well as the passive effect of high corruption, which are unique to each god and will be detailed down the line, cults can form once a god is particularly dominant in a region. This cult becomes a foreign building slot owned by you that can construct unique buildings based on your dedicated god. So this seems essentially like an Undercity or a Vampire Coast Cove, where you can create one of 4 buildings: the Sanctuary, the Repository, the Sanctum, or the Campus. And again, this is unique to the god, so this is for Tzeentch in specific. So Sanctuary here generates grimoires per turn. Repository generates more grimoires per turn, but requires higher winds of magic level, which is cool. Sanctum generates a decent amount of income, but also requires high winds of magic level. And then Campus destroys the cult, but increases winds of magic here in all adjacent regions to Tempestuous. So obviously there's different levels and stages of winds of magic. Tempestuous probably being the pinnacle, or the maybe penultimate, maybe that's, you know, second in line to the top one. So it's going to be interesting to see how this works, because the blog then says you don't really know enough about how Tzeentch plays on the campaign for this to all make contextual sense. But to me, it makes a lot of really cool lore sense, and it makes a lot of sense to just thinking about it from a campaign perspective and how this could possibly help out. Now, this really spicy one here is Teleportation. And I do like this one a lot. So unique to Tzeentch. Oh, yes, it is unique to Tzeentch. I read this before I started doing this, and I guess I forgot the first 3 words here. But unique to Tzeentch and unlocked through the tech tree is armies can go into the teleport stance. This costs winds of magic reserve power to adopt, but is exceptionally powerful. Not only does it allow crossing of impassable terrain, say mountain ranges, rivers, patrolled areas, but instantly triggers an ambush battle should you target an enemy army. It's a one-shot move, so you must readopt the stance if you wish to go again on the next turn, but getting to ambush armies as you like can really swing a war your way. This level of power is why it's locked in the later game for Tzeentch, requiring various techs to unlock. Speaking of which, tech tree. So I do like this a lot, because it was what made Chaos Demons so strong in 8th edition, and it was hard to kind of pin them down because they could teleport willy-nilly into the battlefield, and it was just a crazy shit show. And I wonder how that's going to work out for other gods if this mechanic is unique to Tzeentch, but it was not unique to Chaos Demons as a whole. So we'll have to see what other kind of really cool kind of fast movement capability other factions have, because this would give a huge leg up on Tzeentch's ability to move around. And like I said, if this is a predominantly ranged faction, then having the ability to trigger a ambush battle at whim is going to be hugely advantageous, because you're going to want to have the advantage of using your range in an ambush battle. But let's jump now here into the tech tree. And the tech tree is pretty cool looking. The tech tree, like they were saying, here we'll flash this picture up. It kind of webs out from the center, and as you can see, it costs grimoires for certain specific technologies. You can see teleport dead center there, but gift mutation then goes down to way of deceit, then into greater locus of change, and then into way of war. Or it can go up to glean magic and exalted locus of conjuration, but then way of deceit then brings you further left. And same thing with way of time, will do the same thing down, then up to metallurgic morphism will dink you further to the right. So it talks about how this is a very webby style of technology tree with a lot of stuff that will either push you to the next level or will loop back on itself. You'll have to do other techs in and around it. So I'm really curious to see what a lot of these benefits are going to be. What if it's going to be predominantly like focused on buffing a lot of your units. I really want to drill down on what each direction does for you, right? Like, where does the Cult Whisperer go? Where does the Thaumatic Locust go? What kind of benefits does those give you? So very excited to see this in its entirety once we can finally get into the game. But here's a cool thing at the bottom. It says 9 is the number of the changer. 9 are the levels within the perplexing 9th library, Tzeentch's repository of forgotten knowledge. Scour the bookcases, learn and indulge in our master's lore. So very cool little lore blurb there. But that is our entire drill down here of the mechanics for Tzeentch. And I like things so far because we don't really know a lot of the overarching Chaos Demon mechanics, right? We know this is all the stuff specific to Tzeentch, and we don't know how a lot of it fits contextually into the campaign just yet. And just in the same way as we don't really quite know how a lot of it fits into the campaign for Cathay. But what we've seen from both of these mechanic reveals for Cathay and Tzeentch, they have a lot of really fun, cool, diverse, unique mechanics. When you think of Total War Warhammer 2's initial start, okay, you got martial prowess for the High Elves and then Intrigue and Court. And who ever uses Intrigue and Court now? You know, no one. It's just a crap system. And the rest of it was just pretty much the army roster. But this time around, we're getting armies that have that latter Warhammer 2 experience of having very cool, fun, diverse, flavorful mechanics that dip so heavily into the lore and kind of get you enriched in it. And I'm really excited to see what we're going to get with Kislev and with Khorne. They did say that they're going to get into the former 2 within the coming weeks, and the other stuff to come with Tzeentch, including a roster reveal, hopefully next week. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. If you have any questions, any comments, as always, like I say, make a comment below, and I'll see if I can help out if I can. But as always, have a good one and take care.